Hello and welcome back to Säkerhetspodcasten at Sekte. This is going out live in the streaming. I'm sitting here with Mattias Idagen and our guest for today, Zoz Brooks. Welcome back to Säkerhetspodcasten and Sekte.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's great to be here again.
Yeah, it's been a year since last time, right?
Well, I liked it so much I had to come back.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. So you've just been talking about... Well, I just said why we can't have nice things.
No.
But
yes. I understand that point of view. It's, so talk was on security vulnerabilities of unmanned and autonomous systems. But the point is so that we can have nice things.
Yeah.
To make sure that we don't mess it up.
But it does seem really scary. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's certainly, if you take that adversarial model to it, you're like, oh, wow, like we really have to get this right. You know, because otherwise it could be total chaos. But the thing is, what we have right now is total chaos.
Yeah,
3,000 Americans die a year on the roads. You know, so it's
right.
like a 9/11 every month. Sorry, 3,000 Americans. Did I say a month? Yeah, it's 3,000 a month.
Wow.
So it's like a 9/11 every month. It's like total carnage, right?
Yeah.
We can do better, and robots will make us do better.
Robots are the future, I guess, but it seems like we still have a ways to go.
Well, we just, there's a lot of technical challenges, and then I think people get caught up in solving those technical challenges because they're so difficult, because they're interesting, and they're on that sort of critical path from where we are to where we want to be, and so maybe just like the internet was developed without security,
right.
The worry is that we won't think of vulnerabilities until it's too late. So that's why we need to think now about the fact that not everyone out there is a nice guy, and some bad things might happen. So we got to think about that and make sure at every step in the process we're sort of thinking about the security implications too.
Mm-hmm. I would agree that today, like we have seen lots of the OEMs producing cars that have done miles after miles with some sort of autonomy, and they have a pretty low accidental ratio compared to humans. But I would say that that's sort of a psychological challenge because people want to be in control. Right. And if they aren't, they want it to be like foolproof. So it's really hard to do that. It's like the old, should you drive a car or take an airplane?
Right.
Yeah,
and
you avoid the airplane because...
Exactly. They drive instead, and they're swapping the safest form of transport that humans have ever done for like an incredibly dangerous...
So I can see that aspect, but then again, if you look at where we are today with autonomous, like real autonomous drive, we're still a long way to go for the car to actually manage to navigate a modern traffic landscape on its own. Yeah. Like you get a controlled area with a really dedicated path, like an airport shuttle or something like that. Fine, but when you come to a complex environment where things start moving,
and especially where you have other people driving cars as well,
that makes it even worse. So I would say
that
there's
unpredictability.
Still a lot of technical challenges to be solved until we can realize the potential.
Yeah, that's true. But let's remember we're not just talking about cars, and not just things on the road. We're also talking about aerial vehicles, and we're also talking about boats. Maritime space is ripe for autonomous systems because the sea is dangerous. Sea journeys take a long time. They're super boring, and it's to put all the life support systems for a human on a boat that has to deal with maybe going through hurricanes and stormy seas and all that kind of stuff. It's very expensive. Yeah. So there's all those kind of systems too. And jumping back to the question of acceptance and the sort of psychology and comfortableness of it, that's definitely something we have to think about. One of my favorite jokes on that topic is that the new American fighter plane they're designing now, the next generation, it's going to have a man like a pilot, not necessarily a man, but like it's got a human pilot and a dog on board. And the human's job is to feed the dog. And the dog's job is to bite the human if the human tries to touch any of the controls. Right? So
that's a perfect system. A good joke.
So, like the pilot's there, but he's not allowed to touch anything. Right? Or she's not allowed to touch anything. Yeah. So I think that's sort of where things will go. Right now, all the testing usually has a safety pilot there, and you just have to make sure the safety pilot is paying attention. Obviously, Uber had a problem where they had a safety pilot that was texting or watching movies or whatever and not doing the job. Yeah. But it's going to take these sort of baby steps to get acceptance, and a big part of that is to convince people that you've thought about what can go wrong properly, and not just the ways the system can fail organically, but the ways that malicious people might try to make it fail. So that's really what the talk is about.
Isn't aviation sort of the field that we have gotten the furthest right now? Like we have most of the flight hours are done by autopilot, right? By the safety pilot takes lands the aircraft and could take control. But we don't see that actually in any other business, right?
I think the uptake has been highest in the aerial space because collision avoidance is less of a problem. There's just a lot of space in the air, and everything's tracked, and so they just don't have to worry about a lot of those sort of very basic things.
Yeah, and if the GPS or positioning system is off by 10 or 20 meters, that's not a problem. They have larger margins of error.
Yeah, here's a really interesting example. So the military, when they have expensive drone aircraft, right? They cost millions of dollars, whatever, let's say $20, $30 million per airframe. And most of them have supervisory control on the ground somewhere. So there's someone that may be giving it GPS waypoints or whatever, but they're monitoring what it's doing at all times. If they lose contact with the airframe, the platform is completely capable of flying itself back to base. They don't. They just crash it, even though it's like $30 million or whatever, because the worst case scenario is that it goes to land itself and there's like a C-130 full of soldiers or something on the runway, and it crashes into it and kills all these people. So the military would rather lose an expensive unmanned platform than put people at risk.
That makes sense, I think.
Yeah.
But I would assume that we're going to see something similar to what we've seen in aviation coming to maritime applications sooner maybe than we will see it in cars to the same extent.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how it develops.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't have a crystal ball on that in that area, but I do certainly know lots of people who work in oceanography, and they're just crying out for more robots. If they cannot get the data they need scientifically from manned platforms,
right?
It's just too expensive.
Because like today, autonomous drive in cars, that's a deal. That's a hot topic. But I haven't heard any speak about maritime applications. That was a pretty interesting suggestion, actually.
I feel like it should be more similar to aviation.
Yeah, exactly. More margin of errors,
less
slow
things to
moving.
crash into.
Yeah.
And a similar situation too with respect to just understanding of the space in terms of what other vehicles are out there, because every boat over a certain size has a transponder. You can actually, just like you can track flights with FlightAware or whatever, you can go online and you can track boats everywhere. I imported a laser cutter from China and I knew what cargo ship it was on, and I tracked it the whole way.
How did you know that?
They tell you when you put it on the truck.
I was
doing all the importing, so I was like, I did all the customs and everything.
Oh,
so
okay.
I knew exactly what ship it was on.
Cool.
Yeah. So that you got an advantage there, but on the other hand, so I think, again, I got no crystal ball. I think that maritime is a great space for automation. But if you look at the organization that does most of the sort of political support for the industry, it's not in their top two applications where they think uptake and revenues are going to be the fastest. They think precision agriculture, so making farming more efficient, and driverless vehicles. And I think that's just because of the sheer number of vehicles you could replace.
Yeah.
Did you look regarding vehicles and the sensor? Did you look at the paper from Charlie Miller and Chris Valesek from Black Hat?
This year?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it yet.
No, they downplayed fool the sensor part pretty hard. They thought that LiDAR is it's a solution to anything, because you can't really fool any of the sensor, because the LiDAR will be the master, and if the LiDAR gets confused, the car will actually stop.
But maybe that's what you want as an attacker. Is
Yeah.
to stop the car. Because LiDAR, as I showed in my talk, it's very dosable, and it's very spoofable too.
And then it would be really like the updating of the maps really frequently, because as you said, like overgrowth from the bushes or trees or something would change the map completely. So that would be interesting. And like heavy snowfall, there'd be a lot of obstacles.
Yeah, or a storm or anything.
Yeah.
Right?
There's actually a super interesting thing that just came out, which I didn't put in my talk, because as you could see, it was long enough already. And it's not deployed yet, but Lincoln Lab in Massachusetts just came out with a demo proof of concept using ground penetrating radar to build subsurface maps, and specifically to make driverless cars behave better in snow, because detecting slip and detecting the boundaries of the lanes and the road in snow is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, even for a person.
Yeah.
But if you can see through the snow and through the ground surface, the stuff that's like maybe 10 to 100 centimeters under the ground changes very, very infrequently.
Yeah.
Because that soil and the rocks
need an
and everything,
earthquake, basically.
it's not moving. Yeah, and so it's feasible to map, and then you can just match. So you have to sling a ground penetrating radar under your vehicle. But it's pretty exciting, and they only announced that in the last month or so.
Makes sense. It sounds expensive.
all of this is expensive.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I think, as you mentioned, like sensor fusion, that's the big challenge. That's where you can, when you can fuse a lot of different sensor and try to give a more or less complete picture. So you can't really fool one of the sensor, but it sort of thinks. And then you can have a more stable possibility for the vehicle to know where it is, the state of the vehicle, where am I going to, what is an obstacle, and so on.
Weights the different sensors differently.
And that's why they put a lot of CPU power in today's beginners autonomous drive cars. So I think we're going to see a lot of more of that, like huge data centers on wheels.
Yeah, basically.
It's a little bit scary. But it's
really interesting. I saw like a future concept car just the other day when they focus a lot about what can you do if your car is self-driving, and it was sort of like the car is your home. So you can set it to go to like your vacation spot, and in the meantime you go to sleep in the car, you read a good book, and then you sleep in the car, and then wake up and you're at the where you want to be that day. And you use that as your home, more or less.
There's some interesting things there from a legislative and regulatory perspective too, right? Because pretty much every time I like drive somewhere in a car now, I just wish I could just get out of the car and have the car just like drive around and not even find a parking space. Because in the city, parking is hard to find, and it's like I just want the car to
circle,
go away.
I'll spend less on fuel if the car just like circling the block than I would spend paying for a parking spot in Boston.
Well, can you imagine the traffic?
Exactly. So that's why there needs to be, if we get to the point where everyone's got an autonomous vehicle and could, in theory, do this, there needs to be some sort of regulation that stops people from doing that.
On the other hand, you could probably do more efficient parking.
Have the vehicle drive out of the city. Right?
Go away, park somewhere, come back tomorrow at 8.
Yeah,
exactly.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, there's definitely solutions to that particular problem. But if you don't think about until it's too late, then you're going to have that problem.
And I also think the really interesting part of this that you mentioned that near the end of your talk is a vehicle-to-vehicle communication. You mentioned it's going to take about 37 years to roll out completely to the entire fleet of cars, but I mean we are starting to do that now. And I think it's going to be absolutely imperative, especially if we're going to have autonomous cars and self-driven cars, driven by a person. They're going to have to communicate because people act irrationally.
The interesting part is
cars need to know.
How are you going to, if I'm a car, how am I going to act to signals from other cars? It can't be like commands. It needs to be treated as sensor input, and I can choose to listen to it or not.
The car in front of you can't say stop.
That would be the ideal attack.
So right now, as proposed, there's no active control. So it's just warnings to the driver.
I think that's very wise.
So similar to the systems we have in aviation, like terrain warnings. Pull up, pull up, pull up. There's been plenty of cases on record of the pilots not pulling up and crashing into terrain, but at least the warning is there. It's better than not having it.
That's an interesting field as well. Like, where do we go for? It hasn't been that much adopted yet, like vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to infrastructure. But I guess we are going to see more of it in the coming 5 years. I
hope so. I think that it's like there's a lot of low hanging fruit in transportation, and we can just save a lot of lives with some pretty simple. Pretty simple stuff. As long as we think about it carefully and we make sure we don't create new problems.
And from a security standpoint, as you said, like the PKI infrastructure, I'm really interested in how that's going to play out, because we have huge problems today with the web and the CA structure, and now we're going to use this in the vehicle environment. How is it going to get any better?
I mean, I've looked at some of the specifications for vehicle-to-vehicle and vehicle-to-infrastructure communications for the PKI, and just the fact that you're going to have to consider cars driving from Stockholm to Rome, and probably dealing with a lot of intermediary CAs during that trip.
Yeah.
That's going to be a huge headache.
But the CA is going to be like OEM specific, I guess. So each OEM gets their own CA.
Well, I mean, that depends on how you want to set it up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're talking to infrastructure as well.
So, interesting.
How that's going to work
and that's very interesting.
It's not going to be easy. But
from my perspective, because in the United States, no one's really thinking about crossing 7 countries on a car trip, right? But in Europe, you have to care about that.
Exactly.
Yes.
You have completely different jurisdictions and laws. Yeah. Well, it's going to be fascinating. We'll see. Maybe in another 10 years or something, maybe something has happened.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Interesting times.
All right. If you guys don't have anything else to add, you can plug something if you want. Where can people find you?
I'm pretty hard to find. They can find me at HackerCons. They can come up and say hello.
Look for the guy in the mohawk. All right. Sweet. So thanks, and we'll see you again in a little bit. Bye.